Well, battery range, how far will that bike go? That has to be probably the #1 question that we get here at Electric Bike Journal. Today we're gonna get to the bottom of it. I'm gonna share with you some examples for myself and discuss why the numbers change and share with you some insight as to why those estimations might not always match up to what you're getting. I've been riding the Polygon Tambora AE here for the last few months. Really enjoying it. Then I'm gonna switch over from my Schwalbe G1 Ultrabite tires I put on there this winter back to the all roads that this bike comes with because it's a better tire for these conditions, and that is just one little detail that we'll get to later about what makes the impact of range specifically on a bike like this. So if you're curious at all, be sure to stay tuned. I think this will be a fun video. Numbers, range, mileage, power, and all the other fun things that go into understanding where range comes from when it comes to riding an electric bike. So stay tuned. I'm gonna swap some tires. Let's go. Well, the main reason why I'm switching tires here is because, well, these are the tires that the bike comes with. Those tires that were on there are the tires I swapped over for winter. So they're a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more knobby. They're the same size, but that extra tread, although looking super cool, is not great for just pedaling around on asphalt roads. And these all-around tires do pretty great on the gravel roads around here. And that's from me riding them and riding other tires and finding one that works for me and makes me feel comfortable. So there is some hunting to do. Fortunately, the G1 all-around from Schwalbe is a solid tire for just kind of everyday riding and mixed conditions as well. So the first 2 rides I ran in kind of how it ships, more of the upright gravel position. So on the fork, there is a flip chip. And the fork's designed to have that spacer go in there. And when you change the orientation of it, it will either raise or lower the front end on this bike specifically. Additionally, it will cause a change in your head tube angle. So and therefore adjusts the wheelbase as well. The first 2 rides were with those more aggressive tires. We have those numbers, which we'll show here shortly, and in the slack or gravel position. So what I'm gonna do is flip that chip over and drop the front end, steepen up that head tube angle, shorten the wheelbase a little bit, and change the tires. I know it sounds like a lot of details, but this is just part of what we're trying to get at and what we're trying to expose with this battery range estimator. My predictions as I do all this work is that I'm gonna see a significantly higher range and a difference in my average speed, as well as my physical exertion to maintain that speed in partnership with the drive unit and the battery. So we'll find out and we'll reflect here, but I'm gonna get back to changing out these tires, set my tire pressure, and go get after those miles so we can talk about range. Well, up front, the thing I noticed the most especially between tires and adjusting the flip chip is the bike feels more stable, more planted, going into corners like this at a normal speed. It's just smoother. The bike's not floating around as much. So it kind of helps you to maintain speed. Also, things are rolling really smooth right now, so that's helpful as well. Now, something I noticed on the turbo lap, which I couldn't remember from the previous lap in sprint, is that, for instance, now I'm back in sprint, different tires, changed the flip chip, and about here, around the 2.5 mile mark into it, I had noticed that that first little bar in turbo on the battery had already switched to white, and it's not the case now, so efficiency is already better. So we just hit the first set of orange lights. So I'd say we're pretty on par with the turbo ride in time, overall speed, or so it feels. Kind of feel like I hit that same marker last night the same way. So if there's a takeaway for any of you, wind is not good. All right, well, before we get into all of the numbers and what we actually got out of the Tambora and the different modes with the different tires, let's just talk about the baseline. So the route I chose overall was focused on a 22.3 mile loop. And then I did an add-on for the other pedal assist modes, sprint specifically, to see how much further I could go beyond that and what percentage of battery was left. With that is just shy of 800 feet of elevation. A lot of it is just open backcountry roads that are kind of just flowy, if not just flat. Today, I don't know if you could tell, it's a little bit windier, so I had a feeling that today's ride would have a greater impact and it would affect my speed and a lot of other things. But stay tuned, you'll find out it didn't actually factor in as much in the raw data, just in the physical feeling, which we'll get into here later on. But with that being said, our baseline route, 22.3 miles, about 800 feet, and then the add-on. The bike we're focusing on right now is the Polygon Tambora AE with the SRAM GX group set. Pretty solid build. This is probably one of the only e-bikes that comes with the PowerMore, just baked into the pricing. This has the compact tube, 400 watt-hour battery internally, and a Bosch Performance Line Sprint drive unit. For the purpose of showing you the variables and the things involved, I combine that to having two different sets of tires, and because this bike has a flip chip on the fork, two different positions that I did the rides in, so you can see kind of how that impacts speed and time. It's all very close, but there is an impact and just something worth paying attention to. Now, before we get into those numbers, again, sorry, I'm dragging it out. Some things that I observed while riding and some things I was paying attention to. One thing I noticed about halfway through the ride and even returning is that as a whole, turbo didn't feel over that amount of time faster or more powerful all the way through. Clicking down to sprint and then back to turbo, you could definitely feel that impact. But once you keep pedaling through it, that just becomes your norm for that ride. The other thing was the tires. With those Ultra Bites on there, they're great in the dirt. They're a fantastic off-road tire. I could hear them on the road. I could hear them humming, cornering and leaning into things, as I mentioned in some of the POV. It felt floatier, if that's a word. There was just more of a float. The bike didn't feel as planted or as stable. Going straight and hitting cracks in the ground and potholes and all those things, I didn't have any concerns, but leaning in and cornering, I definitely felt the bike feel a little unsettled. And on top of that, the slight difference in geometry, you can actually feel that change when you're just pedaling out on the road. Obviously, my back was thankful to be up a little bit higher, but you aren't quite as aggressive, especially when it comes into leaning into corners and stuff, just because it's a little bit more slack and you're a little bit higher up on the front end. Well, getting into the numbers, I'm not sure how to break this up to what makes sense, but we'll just go through the different pedal assist modes on the flat line or the baseline 22.3. And we'll start off with the bike setup and the gravel orientation, more slack with the ultralight tires. In sprint mode, it took an hour and 10 minutes. Average speed was about 19 miles per hour, and I had 24% battery left. In turbo, the same setup, it took an hour and 5 minutes, so 5 minutes faster. My average speed was 20.4 miles per hour, and I had 14% battery left. So I was able to shave 5 minutes off of my time, but it also came at the cost of an extra 10% of my battery. Now, if that's all the time I have in the day, I'm not worried about it as long as I had battery to get home. Now, switching the bike over to, as you see here, with the all-road tires and in the all-road position, dropping down that front end, I did it in an hour, 2 minutes, with an average speed of 20.6 miles per hour and 19% battery left. So less battery than the other tires in sprint mode to compare apples to apples, but almost 2 miles per hour faster on the average, again, both in sprint. And comparing that versus the turbo, 3 minutes faster, loosely. You know, that's a few different pauses here and there. They all add up over time. 3 minutes to 8 minutes is definitely a noticeable gap in time. And the average speed overall was impressive. It says a lot about the change in geometry and the change in tires. I was able to hold a higher speed consistently, despite how I felt when I felt that way. The other thing I noticed with the ride today versus the other two rides is it was noticeably more windy. If I did this setup on the first ride with pretty much no wind, those numbers would be even more exaggerated, favoring a faster time, higher average speed, and I would assume more battery left at the end because I wouldn't be working as hard. Comparing the sprint modes between both bikes, because I had more battery remaining at the end of that 22 miles, I added an extra 6 miles to the loop. And with the other tires, I took an hour 28 and my average speed was still there at 19 miles per hour, and I had 6% battery remaining coming back. Flipping over to this setup, I added 17 minutes, so it was an hour 19 total, which is that's 9 minutes faster than the other tires, with an even faster average speed of 20.8 miles per hour than the first 22 miles. And I only had 4% battery left. So a 2% split between this setup and the other setup, but at the benefit of 9 minutes faster. Take that for what it is. Again, this is all gonna be very different for me. My setup, where I'm riding, what the weather's like, and how good I feel. Not to mention what tires and all the other details involved there. You're gonna see different numbers than myself. I'm sure a handful of you would probably see better numbers than me. But those were my first initial feelings and kind of what I'm trying to get at here. I wanna show the raw data. So here are the charts, again, to refresh your memory, comparing the baseline numbers between the different modes with the different setups. When starting the bike, turning it on, connecting to the Flow app, which is Bosch's app, my estimation when I clicked into the sprint mode was, somewhere in the 40s, like 45 or 48 miles, which, as you can see, is not what I got at all. Maybe with the Power More, for sure, I could get that, but not with this setup. And I thought that was really interesting. It is worth mentioning that when I clicked into the turbo mode and looked at the Flow app, my estimation was about 18 miles, and that was way under what I actually got. So those estimations can be wrong. I imagine that they add up over time. The more you track your rides, the more you use pedal assist modes and go through the different modes, it's gonna calibrate better to you and how you ride, and I'm sure give you a better estimation. As far as the overall riding experience between sprint and turbo goes, like I said earlier, turbo, you could feel that power, and after a while that becomes your baseline. You don't really feel it all that much anymore. What I found interesting was how in the end it was kind of a wash. Committing to doing the entire ride in turbo versus sprint, the benefit was not there for me. Having the extra 1 mile an hour average faster speed and significantly less battery was not something I'm interested in. I would rather have more battery and go just a pinch slower, because all of this will be faster than non-electric bike. And I think that's something worth mentioning and worth considering and thinking about. We field a lot of questions, and a lot of them are, how fast does it go? And how much battery, how far can I go? Those are all great questions, but in application, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? And for us, it's trying to achieve the ride that we set out to do and have the most fun while doing that. And my fun level, the fun factor, didn't change between sprint and turbo. And of course I accomplished them in both modes, but having done it twice in sprint and then the once in turbo, I would go back again and probably do it again in sprint, if not even a lower mode, to add more miles to that and have a longer ride. The impact that tires made in creating a greater efficiency and rolling faster is worth noting as well. Again, kind of coming back to that turbo versus sprint mode, going out, doing those rides in sprint, and then having that turbo for maybe a really heavy headwind section that is just straight and you just want to get through it, boost it up, get through that. Or maybe those hill climbs that you're not quite ready for, they're at the end of the ride and you're feeling tired. Having that extra level to get into to boost you through those is really nice, which is just something that I really want you guys to consider and think about when you're looking at your electric bike, or you're looking at buying a bike and you want to know the range estimations. A lot of the blanketed estimation will be based off of the eco mode or their first level of pedal assist, and that's going to be the most efficient one, so it's going to reflect the highest number. As you increase those pedal assist modes, that number will decrease dramatically. All in all, there are some raw numbers on the Bosch Performance Line Sprint with a compact tube 400 watt-hour battery. This is a class 3 bike, so pedal assist up to 28 miles per hour. All said and done, hour plus of ride time, 22 plus miles, and didn't kill the battery on any of my rides. The major takeaways: tires have a dramatic impact on the performance of a bike. Even on a day like today with a lot of headwind, I can't even imagine how much faster I would have gone and how many more miles I could have gotten if I didn't have that extra resistance on me for half the ride. And yeah, it says a lot. So if you have any questions or comments, or there's a bike you're looking to, if you're curious about the range on, or something that we've reviewed, or something on deck, we'd love to know. We'll try our best. If this is a kind of video that you like, and you like seeing the numbers reflected of real world estimations, let us know in the comments. We'd really love to hear that, and we'd love to continue to do videos like this if they're worthwhile to you. Well, thank you so much for watching, and remember, range is going to be different for everyone based off of who they are, what bike they have, what pedal assist mode, where they live. There's endless factors involved. So we'll see you in the next one.